Good morning, everyone. I'm back with another Python video breakdown. You guys won't believe what happened to me this morning. I actually recorded another video before this one, and then I realized my mic wasn't working. So I had to restart the computer, and now I am making another video. Today's coding challenge is from the week of September the 11th. As I stated, I'm backtracking to go back to week 1. And this is the hard challenge, and indeed it was hard to me. It took me a minute to actually come up with this solution. So instead of recording myself coding it, because it took me about an hour, I decided to just record the video of me walking you through my code essentially, instead of you sitting there watching me code for hours. So yeah, let's get to the instructions. The instruction is to write a function, longest consecutive sequence nums, that takes a list of integer nums as input and returns the length of the longest consecutive sequence of numbers within the list. A consecutive sequence is a sequence of numbers that can be arranged in ascending order such that each number differs from the one before by exactly 1. And it gives us some examples. It gives us, for example, in the list 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. The longest consecutive sequence is 1, 2, and 3, because as you can see, after 3, it jumped by 2 to get 5. So it would stop at 3, and that has a length of 3. And it also gives another example of a list where it's all 5s, and the longest sequence is a 5, because the rest is duplicates. So let me walk you through my code and how I came up with my solution after a lot of research. So starting off in my code, as you can see, I did declare the function here that takes in that list of numbers. So first thing I did was I made an empty list to store the consecutive numbers themselves, like they did in the example here, how they store each one. I did the same thing. So I made an empty list to store each consecutive number. And then, of course, I used a while loop to start checking the number in each list. So in order for me to get the beginning number or the lowest number, what I did was I used the minimum function of that list, and that gave me the lowest number in the list, so I know where to start checking and incrementing the number. And then this is my stop condition. I used in my while loop. So while I, which is set to 0, while that is less than my stop value, we are checking those numbers, and that keeps us from going out of bounds and going out of index in that list that's passed. So these are my variables pretty much used to do my while loop, and then of course the list is just going to contain the consecutive numbers. So from there, because some of the test cases they gave us, the numbers were out of order, the next thing I did was I sorted the list that was passed, just in case everything was out of order. We still can get the numbers coming up ascending by 1, and that will be easier to check once everything was sorted. And then of course I'm setting my checking number to the minimum number, because that is where we're going to start and count up and check each number in that list. So here is my while loop. So essentially it's starting from 0 until that last index in the list pass, and we're going to check our number, which is the lowest number that is in the list, to the number in the index of 0 of sort. And what that'll do is, if the, let's say for example, let's grab this list and I can sort of show you what it is doing. So if we have this, for example, this is what the while loop is doing. As you know, first thing I did was I set my check to the minimum number. The minimum number is 1 in this list. So if 1 is equal to the sort index is 0, because we're starting at 0, so it'll be the index of 0. So sort at the 0 index is 1. So it's checking to see is 1 equal to 1. If it is, then we are appending 1 to our sequence list. And then after that, it's going to increase that check by 1 and the index by 1. So now it'll say, since check is now 2, we're going to check 2 to the index of 1, since I is now 1. So as you see, index of 1 in our example is now 2. So it's 2 equal to 2 it is. So then it is appending that 2 to our sequence list. So it's going to keep doing this until this condition is not met. So it's going to do this essentially until check does not match the index of sort at the I value. And if that happens, it'll break out, and then you will have the list of sequential numbers. And yeah, that is pretty much how I solved it. Here's some conditions I used. I made extra ones just to make sure it was working. So yeah. So as you see, most of these are, well, no, this first one is in order, so we didn't have to do any sorting. But for this one, that's where the sorting came in hand, because you see it's out of order, so we needed to be sorted from 1 to 9 that way. And also with this one, I decided to see if it worked if it didn't start at 1, just to make sure it was still working. And this one works just fine too. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So yeah, that is how I solved this solution. It took me a while, and yeah, I had to re-record it, and yeah, this is what we have, guys. Let me know how you would have went about solving this one. Let me know if you have any tips for me, and I will see you guys on the next one. Bye bye.